Hello, all, and welcome to season two, episode two of Here to See the Shelburne. As we touched on last week, Nevin, will be filling in for Andy McGowan in his big shoes and take up the running of today's episode. And we have a lot to cover. And to help me, as always, we have Dunny McKagan and Colin, who we introduced last week. Dunny, I'll start with you to avoid us kind of crossing over with each other. How are you after the hectic few days for Shelburne? Signings, big games.
Yeah, yeah. How you doing, Nev? How are you, lads? Yeah, it was good to be back, I suppose. Right on the whole, it was great to see. There was lots of familiar faces. Just about made kickoff. Had a few personal challenging moments. Someone put a nail in my tire over the weekend, but nil desperandum, we did prevail. And yeah, look, the Will Jarvis news obviously coming in before the game was an absolute massive shot in the arm for everybody at the club, I think. Um, and we were, just maybe one or two moments away from having a perfect weekend, starting off with 3 points. So a little bit of tinge of disappointment maybe on the back end, but all in all, a pretty positive opening weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the signing of Will Jarvis has been it was news that surprised me the day before the game, and he was obviously in the squad. Collie, like yourself, I think you were down at the game. Is that right? Down in Waterford,
Well,
got to see Will come
um,
off the bench.
it must have been the flooding because I had a nail in the tire as well on Friday morning. I can't believe that. What a coincidence.
That's gas.
Must have washed in. Um, so yeah, I was also stuck for time, and then getting out the door. It must have been 5 o'clock. I left Drogheda to get down, but we got there. We made good time in the end, and it was about, I'd say, 15 minutes before kickoff. We got into the ground, got a nice spot halfway up the stand. And what a week. Jarvis signing. We're all going down to watch them. I didn't think we'd see him play, and he ends up coming on. And I thought that the match was thoroughly entertaining, to be quite honest. Not the result we wanted, but I thought it was an entertaining game. In some games last year, we didn't get that type of entertainment quality. I still want to see players scoring goals and winning matches, but look, I'll take the point this early in the season away from home against Waterford, who we didn't do too well against last year. Um, I think we did leave 2 points behind at the same time, though.
Yeah, for sure, Collie. I think that was the main feedback from some of the comments that came in. I was a bit like yourself now. I to see Jarvis on the bench and he came on. It was great. Um, the formation was the 5-3-2 again. We might touch on a bit again because it was touched on in the comments. But generally, Collie, I think on your page you said moments of pure class and frustration tonight.
Yeah,
Jared Corcoran got in touch as well to say we played some great football in the first half, but I think we need to make changes sooner after half time. 2 points dropped for sure, but there's a lot more to come from this team. And may I add that the support was incredible. Steve Jones said something similar, 2 points dropped, but the pattern of football was much more positive. David Brennan, similar, 2 points dropped, but a lot of positives about it. Um, how did you find the atmosphere down there? Donny, I'll direct that to you. You were mentioning it could go a bit flat. My thing with the 5-3-2 is you can come out all guns blazing, and maybe when it stops working, it can be tough for the fans to watch as well. But what did you think down there? You were at it.
Yeah, I thought obviously that the whole thing got off to a great start, Nev, with the place was absolutely rammed. It looked great. The home fans obviously up for it as well. They went with a very attacking lineup, and we had plenty of attacking players on the pitch, and fans were waiting along for the opening goal. Obviously, just after 10 minutes or so. So off to a good start. Then, and then as I was saying to you off air, that like you've got 80 minutes plus then where we don't score and when we concede, and certainly second half maybe the levels off the field in the stand kind of dropped as well as people were. Obviously, we conceded the goal, and then it was a little ponderous comparatively to the first half. I would have said second half we didn't create massive clear cut openings, and there weren't huge kind of lift you off your onto your feet, out of your seat moments in that second half, really. So yeah, I was kind of in the thick of it, coming and going. It's a weird one, obviously in Waterford. If you arrive late-ish, you're kind of in that runoff area where you come into where you're coming up the steps into the near side of the stand, and that's sort of where I was all night, kind of either hanging over the barrier or smushed into the front. And I found second half in there, it was a little quiet at times. But yeah, maybe due to the fact that second half we were a bit stodgy out on the field as well, I think.
Did you think, Collie, I'll direct this one at you. Do you think we were kind of figured out? Jimmy Shell got in touch to say that did Waterford change the shape because the likes of Jack Henry, Francis, and Kerr McElroy maybe weren't seeing the ball as much as we thought. This has always been my problem with 5-3-2 personally. I think the midfielders can be making runs from deep and trying to support the wing backs, support the forwards, and when it loses shape, I think it can kind of ruin the atmosphere within the team and within the crowd. What did you think of the shape? And what did you think of the game on the night?
I think Waterford came to do a job, and they succeeded in the job that they wanted to do. That is frustrating as a team that's trying to be creative. And we did change the shape in the second half to a 4-4-2, if I'm correct. But I would question why Harry Wood ends up out on the right-hand side then. I prefer him through the centre, and I understand sometimes managers want to keep their flair player on the pitch, but I don't know. I was watching Stick to Football podcast there a while ago on YouTube with Lawrence Delalio was being interviewed by the lads in that show, and he was very much like, this doesn't happen in rugby. In rugby, if a fella's not performing, he's taken off. The other fella comes on in the exact same position, the exact same type of player, and they see if they do it. He was saying that he follows Millwall and that he sees it all the time, that in football, managers try and fit a player into a system to keep that flair player on. Obviously, two different types of game, but he sometimes was saying, like, maybe you should just substitute that player off and bring on the similar type of player. I think Harry Wood is wasted when he goes out on the right, and it doesn't really work then, for us. He has to play through the middle. I thought Jervis coming on the left was exciting. A lot of stuff went through him, but I felt we were having success down the left all through the match, even with Dan Kelly. Some people would say there was no end product, but I actually thought Dan Kelly had a great game. I really did. And I thought his tracking back, I thought the two wing backs were working really, really hard. I know some people were saying Mbang wasn't as good as he has been at other stages. I think the two of them were workhorses all night. I can't really fault them. I just don't think it worked for us tonight, and I think it was more about Waterford implemented their game plan more so than we implemented ours.
Yeah, for sure. I think, Dunny, would you agree with that? Harry Wood on the wing is a waste. He should be playing down through the middle. I personally don't mind him right mid, playing out there. I know we've got Jarvis, a different type of winger, on the other wing. I think I'm done with the 5-3-2 myself, but what do you think, Dunny?
Yeah. Look, five at the back can go in the bin for me. But I've litigated that so many times. It's kind of, it feels like it's gonna be in our lives whether we want it there or not. But yeah, look, I think we're at a situation now where like Ali Coote didn't get on the pitch the other night. Evan Caffrey didn't get on the pitch the other night either. Chapman, Wilson, JJ Lunny, Norris and Moore weren't even in the squad. So we're at a position now where there's a little bit of an embarrassment of riches, particularly with obviously Jarvis coming into the building now, so suddenly, that we shouldn't really ever be stuck first, putting players in positions that aren't optimal. So Harry Wood has done well for us on the wing before, but I don't think that was the winning or losing of the game the other night, to be quite honest. But ultimately, we have people who are more adept at playing certain roles than others, and I don't think now, particularly as we've thrown our largesse around off the field, that we should be, trying to shoehorn anyone into any position, whether that's at the back or elsewhere. I think maybe what happened, like whatever about sitting in and frustrating us, like we outplayed Waterford for half the match, quite obviously and considerably. They maybe tried to match fire with fire by, like, they started Noonan, Lonergan, Carty and Almond, which I thought was very gung-ho. And I think when they sort of balanced their own lineup a little bit, they got the dividends. Now, I know I listened back today to Joey O'Brien's remarks and Paddy Barrett's remarks after the game. They were both absolutely livid with the concession and the manner of the goal, and sort of felt that that it was a travesty, really, that we were leaving without a win. So, we created a lot of shots, and most of them were unfortunately off target. So it's a little bit, and a lot of people were saying it, it's a little bit of what we were served last year. But look, I don't want to be too doom and gloom about it. I'm very excited for the season ahead. I'm very excited for the squad that we have. But we all know the importance of a good start, and it's a shame that we're starting with the result that isn't maybe what it should have been.
Yeah, for sure. I think a few points there. Just go back to even what Collie said about Dan Kelly. I actually thought he was great as well. Anytime he's come on, anytime he's played, I don't think he's wants to be wing back. But I suppose, how can we get a better final product from the wingman to serve the likes of Mipo and John Martin? I mean, their goal ended up being a Mipo sliced assist, and John Martin tucks it away, which was lovely. I find when you play 5-3-2 that's what's going to happen. We're not going to boss it out in the middle and then out to the wings enough, because there was a point where I think it was Jack Henry Francis played a ball out to Ming Bang, pardon me, that was intercepted by the left back of Waterford. And I just felt like that was the moment when it was like, Waterford have figured this out of what we're doing. We've got one lad on each wing, and we've got such great wingers. Even Evan Caffrey must feel hard done by, with Jarvis only being signed the day before. I don't think Caffrey's our greatest winger, but I'd say he would have been looking at that like, this kind of pitch, Waterford, I've been down here. I've done jobs in games like this before, especially impacting games. Collie, what would you think in terms of, should we have just stuck with the 5-3-2, maybe brought on a Sean Boyd sooner and just kept doing what we were doing, or do we need more width, better service from the wingers?
I think in the first half we were really, really exciting, and it was working well up until we conceded the goal. And then,
did you not think it was figured out a bit before that, though? I thought they were kind of counter-attacking pretty well before that, in my opinion.
They were counter-attacking, but you're going to get that because we have so many creative players on the pitch who want to get forward. I think we lost our shape when we conceded. We were lucky in some ways that they did score near half-time, because I think we could have ended up 2-1 down if the game had gone on for a bit longer, the way it was going, because Waterford were really starting to have a bit of success, and they were getting more possession. Half-time came at a great time for us after conceding. But before we conceded, I thought we were really entertaining. I thought we were playing good football. There was some nice little 1-2s. There was a good link-up play. It just lost its way, and I think that will come as the season progresses. Unfortunately for us, we don't have the time or the grace. It has to happen immediately. So that end product from players has to be there straight away. Some people say it wasn't there during the week. I think there was crosses into the box. Some of them fell short to the front post, and I don't think Mipo makes the runs to the front post. When he did last season make runs to the front post, he scored against Rovers and Tala. I can't think of who it was against right now, but he had another one where he ran to the front post and scored. When he makes runs like that, he does score. I find sometimes he sits back and he waits for the deep cross rather than preempting that some crosses will be short to the front post. That's just my take on it.
There's an element maybe, Colin, I think as well. Like, I watched the highlights back today, and I saw that the chances back that we made. The volley from McEnroy, if he makes slightly poorer contact, slices it a little bit, or gets more instep on it, I think the goalie's probably beaten. All ends up there. Mipo had a header from, it was similar actually, now that you mentioned that Rovers game with the Cam Ned, which was a ball from wide left, absolutely no power on it, unfortunately, but he was in a very good position. But I would agree with you, Collie, that I feel that, like, at the final whistle, even there was a little bit of like a deep exhale, because every free kick that we conceded and every ball into the box was a little bit of a heart in your mouth moment. And I know we'll probably get on to Oren Casey now in a minute. It's probably a bit of a travesty that we're talking 15 minutes and we haven't mentioned his name yet. But he obviously, for me, was the standout player. Some of the positives on the night, obviously, we saw effectively every player that we've signed all in one go, apart from James Norris, who obviously we've seen before, but everybody else got a run. Lundgren, Freitas, obviously Casey started, and we had Spiel and goal. So really throwing the new lads into the fire. But Casey looked like the real deal to me. Obviously, he'll have more nuanced and sterner tests, you'd imagine, with more intelligent, maybe more on the right side of 30 strikers. But I thought he looked very good on the ball. Something as well I wasn't so sure of, everything we'd heard from Cliftonville fans, where he'll die for the shirt, he'll run through a brick wall. It was very sort of fire and brimstone kind of language about just his ferocity and his willingness to put his body on the line, that type of thing, which is great. I'm all for that. But it was more the sort of finesse element that I was impressed with on Friday as well, that he showed he had a bit of that as well. Stepping out of the back with the ball, sort of getting things going on the counter pretty quickly. It wasn't ponderous on the ball. And that was a really nice thing, I think, for me to see, was that he looks like someone who's happy to have the ball at his feet as well as do the dirty side of the game.
I think when you see someone like Casey who can play a bit of football, asking some of the centre mids, I'll just bring it back to Mipo, because he came in for a bit of criticism from the people who wrote in. We're saying about Mipo getting across the front post, and he's obviously got speed and he can score those types of goals. Maybe he'd like balls more down the middle. Like I thought against Alkmaar, okay, maybe not the greatest example, it's a bit more of a counter-attacking game, but he could burn those centre halves at that level. Maybe that's what Mipo wants to do. When we say that the season's going to figure it out, I would have thought that's figured it out now. I'll just give you one question from that was given in. Lads, first things first, Mipo's the golden boy for Joey. He suits certain games where you are counter-attacking and runs onto balls, kind of like I was saying. Last night was a game for Boyd and Martin. Boyd perhaps came on a bit too late. As much as I'm a Mipo fan, I thought the way we were playing, should Boyd have come on sooner? Was it a game for Freitas? I think he had one chance where he kind of latched onto a ball, but the ref blew the whistle and he looked frustrated. Did Joey get it right on the night? Was there a bit too much change? And was he trying to shoehorn the likes of Jarvis in that stopped Boyd coming on? Collie, perhaps I'll direct this at you. Should we have just kept with the 5-3-2 despite everything we've just said and brought on Boyd a bit sooner and just gone a bit more route one?
I think, no, he changed the formation because he saw something in the potential for the 4-4-2 to work. And we did, most of our shots did come in the second half when we went to 4-4-2. The problem was that our shots were real timid shots straight at the goalkeeper. As was mentioned by Dunny a few minutes ago, Kerr McElroy's shot had lots of veracity in it. If it had just been left or right slightly, it probably would have hit the net. But unfortunately, we never had their keeper down tested. Even though Oren Casey had, in my opinion, an amazing game for a first game, I really was impressed with him. It was Spiel had to make more trying saves a lot of the time, and it was an awful lot of the time it was us in the stands going, "Gee, we need to get this ball clear." I felt Waterford kind of were comfortable with how we went about it at times. But the 4-4-2 did bring a different type of wit. It did bring something different. I would have liked to have seen Boyd come on earlier. I don't know whether I want to see Martin go off or Mipo go off. I think let Joey make that decision. I think we should have faith in all the strikers that any of them can come on and do a job and hopefully be successful. I do find Mipo very, very frustrating to watch, but I do think there's a player in there who we have to remember he is quite young. And then every player in this league, I think we mentioned it last week, is in this league because they do have some sort of fault or they do have something that isn't getting them to the next level. So we have to allow for that as fans too, to understand that most of the players here are young. They're not the finished product. They're not quite where some players are. And the ones that are there are the likes of Moylan who go to the UK, so
I think that's a very important point, Colin. Actually, something that I've been thinking of myself as I saw a few remarks after the game that were sent my way that I didn't appreciate very much about Mipo. Maybe I should have expected it. I don't know, but it's something that bugs me. That it's still ongoing. Like he comes to the club, he scores 10 goals. He scores last season more than any other striker at the club. And like you said, it's not up to any player in the Shelbourne squad, I would suggest, to live up to the unrealistic expectations of a fan, whether that's me or anyone on here or anyone listening at home. If you set parameters around a signing based on what, I don't know, and this is the thing with Mipo, like what was the metric that we expected more than 10 league goals last year? You're not happy with 10
because he came from West Ham, who are a Premier League club, and the academies he came through. But what people are forgetting is he's still only in his early 20s, and it's very different playing at elite level in academy teams in the UK to what it is playing Senior League of Ireland football.
Yeah, absolutely, but like Tyreek Wilson came to the academy at Man City and he couldn't even get in. He was watching the game in the stand. He can't even get into the squad. So like I'm sort of speaking rhetorically. I think that there is some perception out there is because he's a black athlete. I don't know that. I think it is to some degree that people just expect him to be better. He's had some time in the UK. He didn't pull up any trees in any club in the UK. There was nothing on his CV to suggest that he's going to come here and hit 15 plus goals. The top goal scorers, as we know, for the last decade or so in this division have hit about 15. He hit 10 in all competitions. I would hardly say that that's, something where you'd want him out of the club. And I know no one here is saying that, but it's certainly something that gets sent into us from time to time. And I've seen, stuff from WhatsApp groups and whatever that I don't like the tone of, to be honest. And on that note, we spoke last week about Joey O'Brien naming a Scot as our vice captain, on sort of being aware of the ever increasing multiculturalism in our own dressing room in Tolka. That I would urge everyone to, if you hear or see or are around any abuse being dished out towards any of our own players, particularly if it's anything to do with the color of their skin or their race or whatever, to call that person out on it, because we can't just let that stuff go. I remember actually the first Shells game I ever went to on my own. We had Joey and Doe playing for us, and one fan used black in a pejorative sense before giving out to him for not getting a cross in or something like that. And the person who I since gone on to know over all these years later got in that guy's ear and said, "What are you talking? You know, that's absolutely not on. That's not what we do." And look, we call ourselves Dublin's finest. I was asked what that means a while ago. I think, you know, what does Shelburne mean to you? It's prestige, class, success, winners. Um, and I would just urge people to be, you know, a bit careful about their language and not being digging and to not be digging out players who put on the red shirt. Like, I watched the highlights, as I said back earlier, lads, and Mipo picks up the ball almost in the same position of the field where we conceded that free early in the second half of their goal. He's got very little real estate to work with. It's a ball up the channel, I think, from Cameron Ledwidge. He is almost on the touchline, facing it. Takes it in, turns, spins out, gives it back. This is the move that leads to our goal. That's the move that the ball stays active, stays in play, leads to Cara McEnroy's shot, which kind of bobbles around. Mipo tries to make something of it inadvertently, gets an assist for his trouble, and we're a goal to the good. The man has a lot to offer. I like this idea. I don't know how sustainable it is. Maybe you guys might have an opinion on, like, seeing 4 strikers in one match is pretty cool. Like, you know, you can make 5 subs now. So we started with 2 and we ended with another 2. I I mean, I don't know how long you can keep everybody happy. I mean, there's injuries and so on as well. This is another thing about Boyd, lads. Like, people are talking about Boyd should play, Boyd should start. You know, the best ability is availability, and Mipo's not been injured basically at all since he's come to the football club. John Martin was out injured a lot last year. He's playing through an injury right now. Sean Boyd, you know, I'm thinking back to Macedonia where he came on the field and had to immediately turn around and be taken off. We all wish Sean Boyd the best, but like, there's a reason as well that Mipo's getting in the team and he's scoring more goals than any other striker, and you know, he's available to be selected. So, yeah, sorry, I went around the world for sport there, but there's a few things in there I thought had to be addressed.
Well said, Dunny. Yeah, I think it's one thing you touched on Mipo there, like making goals and doing the hard work. I always felt the same, was kind of thought of Aidan O'Brien. I know he was only there a couple of months, but some of the chasing down and frees he won off the ball, and people would slate him, probably because of where he came from. Had a couple of Irish caps, even an Irish goal. But speaking of lads, let's say different cultures or nationalities, Collie, what do you make of even Will Jarvis coming into the squad, or let's say even Freitas and Lundgren, how they will fare? Jarvis, we obviously know, we've seen before. Do you think he'll just slot back in? And you might comment on the other 2 lads as well, Freitas and Lundgren, from what you've seen.
I'll start with Freitas. I don't think we saw enough of him to be able to judge. He made one atrocious pass down the line at the end, and it was just the ball bobbled. The poor guy had probably never seen rain before, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Tough place to go.
Like, what a tough thing for a Portuguese guy to have to go down for the first time to be on that pitch, and have to try and deal with that, and the weather. I'm sure in training that week he'd never seen anything like it either. So we didn't get enough of him. Jarvis, I think he slotted right back in. He was doing the little drop the shoulder, go round players. Geez, if that had gone into the top corner, that one that went over the bar, the place would have lost their minds. Like, I really thought it was going in when it left his foot, and then it just started to rise. But like, I think we all know what Jarvis has and can bring. And then what was your other question?
Well, it was just more lads from abroad. Even Lundgren. Do you think have we seen enough of him? He came on.
Nah, we didn't see enough of him either. But yeah, I love football as an international game. I love seeing international players in the league. It's exciting. It brings, like, I can't remember his name now. It escapes me. But the last Portuguese fellow we had was a right back, scored that beautiful back heel.
Cabral.
Yeah, like, magic. And then he was gone. But like, he will forever live in my mind for that goal that he scored. And he was something different, you know. That's what foreign players bring. And it'd be a very boring league if it was all just Irish players. who are
Absolutely.
Amen.
predominantly white. So I once they put on a red shirt, all I see is the red. Um,
Yeah.
if we're
That's a
talking about that sort of
we
stuff, uh, I look. I know it's only in jest, and it's, but I think we've moved on from some of the chants, like this Casey chant. I'm not buying that one. I know it was a bit of fun, but I think we can be a bit more creative with our chant for Casey when it comes than what we had. I like to leave those days in the past if possible.
Yeah.
You think we had enough of that in the summer, didn't we?
Yeah, and you know what?
Four Linfield games.
I probably in the heat of the moment, I probably got involved in that myself. It happens. It's football. It's also our culture and identity as Irish people. But like, geez, we can do better. We have so many more creative chants than our class. You know what I mean? That's the
Yeah. We're
I
we're
think we
grown
need to
now. We're
get
more mature. Go ahead, Dunny. Sorry. Yeah.
we need to get Freitas a long sleeve shirt. The long sleeve. Was he wearing gloves with a short sleeve shirt?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
skeptical of any guy that wears short sleeves and gloves, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, well, he's been training here long enough now. You know that a pair of gloves to do you no good. I'm sure if he was told that Waterford was a sort of a holiday destination on the coast, similarly to where he's from, where he's been playing his football in a Portuguese coastal destination, he probably got more than he bargained for there. Yeah, I'd agree. Like, we probably didn't see enough of him on the ball. Maybe the pitch was lumpy, the game was stretched. It was a kind of a mile a minute, end to end type of game at that stage as well. I'd say the same for Lundgren, although I thought he was tidy from what I recall. Obviously, Jarvis kind of steals your eyeballs a bit. You're instinctively more drawn to him because he can. You've seen the goods that he's produced before. So, yeah, I'd agree that he looked like the Jarvis of old. There's an element of, like, obviously, like, 3-year deal for Jarvis is unbelievably good. Like, to get him back at all. I'm not sure which one of us said it earlier on, but I never expected to see him again. I thought, frankly, that we were signing people like Mayo Lundgren to be sort of a Jarvis 2.0, to sort of to fill that gap and to give us a bit more carry forward kind of possession dribblers. So to have this other option now, you're looking at, like, obviously Wood can carry the ball, Coote can carry the ball, and didn't get a chance to do so the other night. You'll have Lundgren, you'll have Jarvis, and all these guys. Like, it's very exciting. The only thing, and as we've touched on, obviously we had 24 shots, which is a mammoth number, but only 5 of them were on target.
And 3 of those were just into the keeper's arms, I'd say.
Yeah, a lot of them were blocked, and a lot. I think 13 were off target. So look, if you can't, you don't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. But yeah, it does suggest a little bit of panic or maybe just being not being able to decide when the time to pull the trigger is. Maybe are we doing it too late? Are we doing it when it's not on? But yeah, hopefully now, like, this is the problem. It kind of, it ramps things up for next week. We win on Friday, everything is hunky dory. But obviously, any result could happen on this Friday, and then you're suddenly these kind of what ifs and shoulda, woulda, couldas are a little bit more costly.
Yeah, and I think, and sorry to be repeating myself, I think even with the chances you talk about there, and I'll bring it back to the 5-3-2, because I just think you can get plenty of chances, and I just sort of laugh at myself with some of the players we named. They're kind of wingers, more creatives, who it has to be more wingers with Jarvis, Lundgren. We only saw so much. Even Evan Caffrey, we know, can play wing back, but what a great winger to have, and then Harry Wood through the middle with Boyd or whoever, and Mipo. Anyone know anything on the rumours on the near transfer of Mipo last week? Was there anything solid there? Was it abroad or?
Well, the reports came from David Sneyd, if I recall, or they certainly, if I remember correctly, they came through channels that would normally be pretty sturdy with their information. And of course, it was David Sneyd who broke the Jarvis thing last week as well. So the details that emerged were that he was being transferred to a team in, I believe, the Belgian Premier Division, who were sort of towards the bottom, and that he had said his goodbyes and whatnot, and was expected to be leaving, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened, because I assume that would be seen as a step in the right direction, career wise for him, where he to take it. I assume their league is more established and more highly ranked than ours. The infrastructure and pay and everything there, I'd imagine, would be on a higher scale than ours. So I don't know whether this is the thing, like transfer deadline day is a bit of a nonsense, often, because there's so many clubs with so many fingers in different pies, and there was a lot of bids in for Harry Wood, obviously, but we were turning them down. So you better believe that those teams who were in for Harry Wood were in for about 4 or 5 Harry Woods, and they probably ended up with somebody else. And you'd imagine it was the same with Mipo. That team whose name escapes me in Belgium, we're probably looking for a striker, and we're talking to someone in Dublin and maybe Scotland and maybe France and wherever else. So look, insofar as do I think it could be detrimental? I don't think so. There's he's a very young player still, and there's plenty of transfer windows in the future. I think he'll feel largely he had a pretty good season last year. I don't think it affected. I didn't see anything from the performance on Friday that would say, oh, he didn't look himself, or it affected him in a negative way.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree. I would be delighted that we've hung on to him and the Harry Woods and players of that caliber. It's great to see that we did keep them and bring others in. I think we will just move on now to Rovers this week. I myself was away for the Waterford game, and I'll be away for this one. I am in the home of Silkeborg, the team that cost Drogheda a place in Europe. Despite Silkeborg not even winning the cup, they actually came second. They just got the place anyway. And Colin, you're a man who's in Drogheda, so we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Rovers this week? What are you expecting? It was interesting that they didn't have a game this week. So, is there after being called off, is there a bit of pressure on them?
I live in exile, just like Rovers. I think that, first of all, isn't it kind of mad that they didn't have a game this week? It's meant to be the best stadium in the country, and it's constantly waterlogged.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy. But look, these things happen. Beg your pardon. I don't think it'll affect them that much that they had no game. They played the week before against Derry. They're all seasoned pros. It's going to be a tough game. I'm looking forward to it. I always love the Ringsend Derby. That's what I'll call it. I probably, of all the teams in the Dublin teams, they're the one I respect the most, because they're high achievers, and they always. I find the games are always really entertaining with Rovers. So and more so in Tolka Park, that they've been entertaining, but they've been. I guess what I'm saying is I'm just looking forward to the game this week. I think you could flip a coin. It's a very hard one to predict, and I was hoping that if we were to drop points, it would be this match, and it would be a draw. But now, after dropping points last week, I think we need to win it. So I think I said last week, I said if we got 9 or 10 points, I'd be happy. But now this becomes a must-win after the draw last week, after the first 4 games.
You set the bar very high there in the opening week, Colin.
Yeah, but I'm still not asking for 20 goals from Mipo's season. So
that's true.
I have different. There's different places where the bar has to be set.
Different tones, different shades.
If we want to win the league, we got to be winning straight away. That's the way it is. That's how good Rovers are, and I think that's how good Derry are going to be this year. So we can't be dropping many more points. And last year we didn't have a problem beating the teams at the top, if I remember correctly. So there's nothing to fear here with Rovers. I just want to see us go out and if I can do them.
For sure. We'll have to take the Rovers win and take 10 points from 12, I guess. Dunny, what do you think? What are you expecting from Rovers? Do you think it's winnable? I certainly I love playing them in Tolka rather than
Yeah,
going out there. I mean, no one likes going out to that windy hellhole, I'll call it.
Yeah, I have to say I've done a bit of an about turn on these fixtures in the last couple of years. I suppose winning a league might do that to your mindset, but I kind of recall having us return to the top flight. Those first couple of years, I kind of Rovers were just seemed to me so far ahead of everybody else that I remember us celebrating a last minute equaliser, Gav Malloy's header, like we just won the title. There was something about like anything you got off them was kind of was a bonus. That's how I would have looked at the fixtures against them. Now, unfortunately, obviously, when you're playing in a 10-team league, that's four free hits you're allowing yourself, which isn't ideal. But as Colin said there, that the quality of the games have been second to none, really. If you're to look at the direct head-to-head matchups, us and Shamrock Rovers has been the probably box office game when it comes to just overall talent on display, end-to-end games, usually not dull, goals for both teams. We find it almost impossible to not concede against Rovers. I don't think, just as a quick aside, I don't think Spiel would be super happy with his part in that goal the other day. Came at him very fast and from close range still, but I rate him so highly. I think he'd probably, on another day, maybe with a drier ball, that stays out. But anyway, I'd love him to get his first clean sheet of the season, obviously, on Friday. So the stakes are high. The narrative will be there baked in already, where they'll be like, "Oh, we didn't have a game last week. Use catch us on the hop or whatever." But I agree. I don't think that's really likely. They've played a game against probably better opposition, to be honest, in Derry City than we did in Waterford last week. The games have been close between us in the last few years. So again, I think you're probably talking a 1-1 or a 2-1 in either direction. So hopefully maybe Kerr McInroy can keep up his form of loving a goal in the Dublin Derby and making it another Dublin Derby to remember for the Scot.
Yeah, if he could do another screamer like he did against Bows, I don't think we'd complain about that. And you're right, they have to be the two best 11s in the league over the last couple of years. I recall going out to Rovers one Friday night, and Rovers were maybe a little dominant on the night, and it was a Graham Burke goal from about 25, 30 yards out. He just kept it low and it went in. I was like, that's that little bit of class that both teams have. Everything else is well matched up. Collie, just one last thing for you. I suppose any predictions on the game then?
Well,
We'll take a draw.
only a madman predicts this fixture.
2-0 then.
No, it has been it's been predominantly draws or the odd goal either way. You could toss.
Do you think we'll be more cautious? Do you think we'll go 5 at the back again?
No, maybe. Yeah, I think we probably will, but I would like to see us throw caution to the wind and just have. But then sometimes Joey has surprised us. He like against Palace, I think he sort of went for it, and that was a mistake. So
he had to in a way.
Yeah, he did. He did have to in a way, but I didn't expect that against Palace. So I think he'll have learned from that too, and I think we'll get somewhere in the middle. I think we will take our moments to go at them far wiser than maybe we have in the past. I think our European matches will lend themselves to us handling and game management of this game far better. I think it could be 2-1 either way. I'm not gonna predict. I'm gonna say it's 2-1 either way.
What about you, Dunny? Do you think this is we go 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 like I keep going on about, but do you think this is a game for Jarvis maybe? And I don't know, maybe I'm a Mipo fan, but is it one that maybe Boydie might love, he got a few goals in pre-season, and we know he can piss off anyone.
Yeah, his preseason certainly has been good. I hope that we don't overthink it. Joey's obviously finished his playing career at Rovers. Now this is the first time he'll be starting a season as our manager. Going in, it's now his tactics and his tactics alone that he's implementing against Stephen Bradley. So I hope that he, and I'm sure he will be his own man and not sort of double guess himself and get himself tied up in knots. But I don't think he can start Boyd because I don't think he's proven he's got the minutes. Although we're looking at maybe swapping strikers at 60 minutes now. I think Mipo will probably start.
Maybe John Martin as well.
I think you probably rock with the same two, to be honest, Nev. Yeah, because you, and again, when everybody's going to know now, and look, we showed it after an hour making the changes the other day. If it's not working, just there's two boys and all the rest of it on the bench who can come on and play your position. So, Jarvis and I know that Joey O'Brien made a point of saying it after the game, has had very little football this season for Notts County, so that's not ideal. I think he will be seen coming off the pine for the next little while, and I think that's fair. The last thing we want is to try and get him into the starting 11 too quickly and him to get some sort of muscle injury or whatever. The pitches are heavy and everyone else has got more football under their belt than he has. And also to be fair to the other people in the building, but I think he's only had 6 appearances or something like this for Notts County the whole season, and they're pushing 30 games. They're up towards the top of the division, so it's very limited minutes for him. So I think that'll be a slower burn. But as I said, it's great to have those options. Yeah, I hope we can find that balance that Colin was talking about there of making pushes at appropriate times. There's been this kind of ebb and flow and of matches between us and them at Tolka, where I said it on this pod multiple times last season that the opening 10-15 minutes against them where we took the lead last year, I thought we looked incredible, and then 20 minutes later we're wide open through the middle of the park and they're just taking pot shots from everywhere, and suddenly it looks like we're going to be lucky to get out with our lives. So hopefully it's a bit more of a sort of disciplined display with hints of flair. I'll go, look, I'm feeling giddy early in the season, so let's go with a Mipo goal and a Jarvis winner laid on for a 2-1 win to the Reds.
I would take that as well. That's not a bad outlook. And you're right, some of the players we have, we barely even touched on Harry Wood in this episode, and players of such quality that we know we have, going back to the Rovers Shells 2 best 11s. It's going to be a good game either way. I'll have all the Danish family watching with me over here, whether they like it or not. But lads, look, we will leave it there for this week. Enjoy the game if you're both going. I will be back next week for the home game, which I believe is Galway. But just to all the listeners, thank you for listening. Don't forget to get in touch with your questions and give us a rating and a following. And yeah, thanks again for listening this week. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dunny. Thanks, Golly.
Nice one.
See you again. Bye.